In this video I'm going to show you how you can sketch these two graphs. So let's have a look at this one first. So to sketch this, start out with y equals x, which looks like this. So when you look at -1, what's the absolute value of -1? Which is right here, -1. The absolute value of -1 is the number 1. So this point gets moved up to here. So it will be here. If you look at -2, what's the absolute value of -2? The absolute value of -2 is the number 2. So this point gets moved up to here. So it would be right here. So all the negatives becomes positive. So your absolute value graph will look like this. So now if you look at this one here, so notice that this is the same as this. So to understand this, draw the graph y equals x minus 4. So it has an intercept of -4 and a gradient of 1. So the graph looks like this. If you look at this point here, what is the absolute value of -4? The absolute value of -4 is the number 4. So this point here will get moved up to here, 4. And then you see all the negatives becomes positive. So this thing here, absolute value of x minus 4, will look like this V shape here. And then now you've got your V thing. Now you've got your V thing here. When you square root that V thing, well, what's the square root of 0? It would be 0. What's the square root of 4? It would be 2. What's the square root of 4 here? It would be 2. So you see your graph will look like the square root graph, like this and like this. So so this thing here will look like this. Hang on, this is 4 here, so it will look like this. It's like a square root graph, but then you can go into the negative realm, because when you take the absolute value of the negative, it becomes a positive. So this graph will look like this. Okay, so now let's take care of this one here. So same idea. Start out by drawing a graph. Hang on. So start out by drawing the graph y equals x squared minus 2x. So when it's small, it wants to do well, don't forget the intercept is 0, and it wants to do a gradient of -2 when it's small. So it wants to do this. When it's big, it wants to do a quadratic. So let's go straight up, down, and then up. So your graph will look something like this, because when it's big, it wants to do x squared. When it's small, it wants to do a straight line of gradient 2 going through the origin. So you know it looks something like this. So the graph will look something like this. And now when you take the absolute value of that graph, let's just imagine this is -1 here. What's the absolute value of -1? It would be +1. So this point here gets moved up to here. Let's imagine this is 0.8. What's the absolute value of -0.8? Well, it will be +0.8, so it will be here. Let's have a look at this one here. Let's imagine this is -0.2. What's the absolute value of -0.2? It would be 0.2, so it would be somewhere around here. So as it turns out, when you take the absolute value of this thing here, all the negatives here becomes positive. So your graph will look like this. So your graph will look like this. So your graph will look like this. Okay.